Welcome back, guys. Week 2 of BSing Sports with Brandon Swift. I'm Ryan, Bill with me as always. And today we have a very special guest with us, my best friend, a guy I introduced as my brother and Bill's actual blood brother, Tim. What's going on, Tim?
What's going on, guys? It's an honor to be on your second broadcast as one of your first guests.
We're happy to have you, man. Absolutely. Stoked to have you. We're stoked that you're the first guest that we get to have on our show. Today, we have a lot to cover, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to start out with a little bit of Phillies baseball because we're not biased at all if you look at my jersey and Bill's background. And we're going to specifically talk about the center field starting position, who's going to play there. We're going to talk about the back end of the rotation, had some questions coming into the season as who was going to start there. And we're going to discuss Mick Abel a little bit, the Phillies first pick from last June's draft. And then from there, we're going to get into our division by division predictions, who we think is going to finish where with about how many wins. And then we're going to get into end of the season hardware and who's going to take it home. Bill, why don't you start us off with who's in center?
Yeah, that's a great intro there. A little bit of Abbott and Costello there. So I want to start by saying our poll question from last week is going to stay on our Facebook page. Please go and answer the question. At what age does Tom Brady retire at? And we will discuss it next week during a more football associated podcast. Center field for the Philadelphia Phillies, a little bit of a rotation right now. We have Odubel Herrera, who at this point in spring is the clear-cut winner of the job if you're looking from a statistical standpoint. We also have Adam Hazley on the roster, who is injured right now. We have Scott Kingry, who Timmy's going to touch on in a few seconds. Also not doing so hot. He's hitting, I think, 174 this spring with 1 home run and 2 RBIs. He's just looked lost at the plate. And we have Roman Quinn, who is Roman Quinn. He's been in the league for 5 years now. He's very fast. He's not weak on defense, but he's not exactly stellar for how quick he is. You would wish his glove was better. And then same thing at the plate. He's a switch hitter who doesn't really have a lot of pop, but he should be able to use the field better than he does. When he's on the base path, he's extremely dangerous. So I think he makes the roster as like a late innings running individual. But outside of that, like I said, Odubel Herrera right now is the clear front runner for the center field position in Philadelphia.
Tim, you have an interesting take on Scott Kingry. What is it?
So my big thing about Scott is he hasn't played a set position in his 3 years that he's been in the MLB. He played second to start off with for Cesar Hernandez. Then he moved to the outfield when we had an injury from Odubel. And then he's been traveling back and forth between the infield and outfield. It messes with his mind at his bat, man.
And I agree with you to a certain extent, and Bill will touch on this a little bit more. Moving positions, no matter what level of ball you're playing, whether it's T-ball or, Major League Baseball, there's certain things that come with playing a certain position, and you have to mentally prepare for each position differently. When the ball's hit to you, where are you going with the ball in what scenario? Grounder hit to second with a runner on first is different than a fly ball hit to the left center gap when you're playing center field. So everything from the mental aspect is different. Like Yogi Berra said, baseball's 90% mental. However, this is not a position he is now unfamiliar with. This is his 3rd year that he's pretty much been a full-time utility guy. I would expect a major leaguer to make the adjustments on the fly, and he's had time. At this point, there's almost no excuse for his struggles at the plate being tied to his position-to-position jump in the field. Bill?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, Tim, so I've been a huge fan of Scott Kingry since he was in the minor league ball. But listen to the statistics for Scott Kingry in 2019 when he was a super utility guy. He didn't play the same position 2 days in a row almost ever unless there was an injury. He had 126 games played, 458 at-bats. He hit 258, which, granted, not phenomenal, but it's also better than average. He hit 19 home runs and 55 RBIs. Again, as a super utility guy, never playing the same position twice. So I hear what you're saying in the aspect that he hasn't played the same position, and it can affect when you're struggling in the field, even though he's not struggling. When you're struggling in the field, it does affect you at the plate sometimes. You try to leave it on the field, but it's difficult. We all play ball. We all know it's difficult to leave it out on the field. But I just don't buy that he's having issues because he's not playing a consistent position. I think he's in his own head, and he just hasn't recovered completely from whatever it is that has sparked this downside and down spiral for him.
Yeah, you guys made some good points here. From what I'm looking at, what Bill did his research on, yeah, in 2019 he had a great, decent year, and then he just went downhill afterwards. Like Bill said, it's in his own head.
I mean, look at Rick Ankiel. I mean, that guy was a stud pitcher coming up. He was a high prospect, and then all of a sudden he couldn't throw a strike. Things like this happen in baseball. They happen in all sports. Guys just fall into a funk and they can never get out of it. So maybe this is one of those scenarios. Hopefully, it's not. I would love to see Scotty bounce back. I'd love to see him play great baseball. He's a 3 to 4 tool guy. He's got great wheels. He can show some pop with the bat, and he can hit the other way when he's not in his own head, like we've discussed before. So I would love to see Scotty bounce back and possibly take the center field job, but more into Odubel Herrera, who's probably going to win this job. There's a knock against him. He hasn't exactly grasped the locker room yet. He had a domestic violence incident in 2019, sat out all of 2020. Guys may or may not respond appropriately to that, and getting the locker room is a big thing in major league sports, really, especially baseball.
Yeah, we had a couple of players come out and not exactly accept him, but also not dismiss him as a player in the locker room this spring. I'm not going to drop any names on it, so you guys can look up the reports. There was several big name Phillies that came out, and from the tone of the interviews when they were being asked about Odubel Herrera, none of them were really positive, but they all tried to not be negative. So I agree with you, Ryan. There's a whole disconnect in the locker room with Odubel Herrera and the team. And if he doesn't have the locker room, I think Joe Girardi stays away from him. He doesn't want to be toxic. Moving on from the center field conversation, we'll talk about the rotation for the Philadelphia Phillies. Obviously, we have Aaron Nola, 2017 third place Cy Young candidate. We have Zach Wheeler, who we got from the Mets last year. Throws regularly around the 97-mile-an-hour range. And they're top 7 starting duo in Major League Baseball. Behind them, Zac Eflin is the lockdown number 3 guy. He has the ability to be good. It's just he is extremely inconsistent, much like the Scott Kingry situation. He can get in his own head. That is difficult as a pitcher because one thing, it's like the quicksand effect. One thing just leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. When you're on the hill, everything that you do that's wrong is really exacerbated. Then our 4 and 5 guys, we picked up likely 4 and 5 guys. Ryan will talk a little bit more about this. 4 and 5 guys are Chase Anderson and Matt Moore, who we picked up in the offseason. Ryan, what you tell about them?
Yeah, so Matt Moore's coming back from Japan. He spent last year overseas, and he really rediscovered himself, reinvented himself as a pitcher. He developed, some off speed. He had some command issues prior to going overseas. He discovered the cure to those, and he's been great this spring. It's a great pickup for the Phillies. And Chase Anderson's been in the NL West for the last 6 years. There are very, very few pitchers' parks in the NL West. Probably San Diego's it, but his home stadium of Arizona, is a launching pad for hitters. And he had a sub-4 ERA out there for 6 years. So this guy's proven that even in good hitters' ballparks, he can be a serviceable starter. And if your number 5 guy is dealing with a sub-4 ERA throughout the season, you got a pretty deep rotation. So hopefully we can see some of that from Chase Anderson. And then 2 other guys that are competing for the job, Vince Velasquez, who has been in and out of the rotation the last couple of years. Hopefully he's more out than in. I don't like seeing that guy as a starter. Tim will touch more on where he thinks Vince should be. And then we have Spencer Howard. Spencer Howard is a prospect coming up through the Phillies organization. He looked okay at times last year. It looks like he's not quite ready, so I wouldn't be surprised if he started the season in AAA. But those are the 4 main guys that were competing for this job. And Matt Moore has been absolutely good this spring in a small span. He hasn't pitched a whole lot of innings, but Chase Anderson also brings the numbers to the table. And like I said, if you can bring 5 guys to your rotation that have sub-4 ERAs, that's a good rotation. Tim, why don't you talk about Vince Velasquez a little bit?
So with Vince, I think he's going to be a setup closer guy, like the 7th inning or 8th inning going in to the deep in ball games. Say like Aaron Nola can only get through 7. They're going to throw Vince out there who throws faster than Nola and try to wing a ball, get the strike to get the out, and don't have to worry about going long distances anymore.
So to piggyback on that, we had this conversation the other night, and at first I didn't really agree with you. I know Ryan's excited to get Vince Velasquez off the roster. However, the Phillies always had Vince Velasquez on a pitch count, and that's always in his head. It's always in a pitcher's head. Like, where am I at in my pitch count? What do I have to try and do to get out of this inning to not overdo the pitch count so I can come out next inning? If he's not on one, I think you're right. I think he's just going to go out there and swing it. I don't think he'll be an 8-inning guy. The latest I think they'll put him in a game is the 7th inning, or he'll be a middle reliever, pitch 2 or 3 innings when somebody's struggling. Ryan, what do you got?
I almost want to agree with Tim. I do believe that he has the potential to be a setup. That dude's electric when he's coming out for one inning. I think if he knows that he can just, let it fly. He's got stuff. He's got good two pitches. He throws a nice curveball, and his fastball is lively, especially when he can command it. Not being on that pitch count, not worrying, having to get through 5, 6 innings and kind of save yourself will definitely help him mentally. I think that's been part of his issue, as you just touched on, is the pitch count thing. So as soon as he comes off of that, I believe thoroughly that he has the electric stuff to be an 8th inning guy. And I'm not saying him and Archie Bradley are going to be Ryan Madson, Bradley, 08. We're not going to be that locked down. That's unrealistic expectations. But I believe that if Vince comes out and throws with his stuff, he could potentially be a staple in this bullpen.
Moving on with one other pitcher in the Phillies organization. He was drafted not first overall. He was the Phillies' first draft pick in the 2020 draft. Kid by the name of Mick Abel, stands at 6'5", 198 pounds. Ryan, you've got more information on him than I do.
Yeah, he's a young kid. He just turned 19 last August. He has a lot of potential. This is a guy that, going into the draft, already had at least 2 and possibly 3 MLB pitches ready, and that's unheard of. It was either him or Garrett Crochet, who I'll get into more later, that I wanted the Phillies to get. I'm happy they got Mick. This guy, he's got an electric fastball. We're talking 99, 100 miles an hour for multiple innings, so he knows how to sustain it. He has an MLB-ready curveball that goes 12-6, drops off the table, and his changeup has gotten a lot of great reviews from MLB scouts. They're saying that's the pitch he might need to develop a little bit more, but again, he's only 19 years old. I don't see an MLB arrival in 2022, but I could definitely see it in 2023. If he right around 21 years old, let him grow into his 6'5" frame a little bit. 198 pounds is a little light to sustain a full season workload. So let him grow a little bit, let him develop that changeup a little bit. I could definitely see him here in 2023.
Yeah, some stats on Mick Abel real quick for you Phillies fans. In 2019, he pitched 72 1/3 innings, had 111 strikeouts, and a 1.26 ERA. It was good enough for him to win Player of the Year for Oregon in both 19 and 20. I know I say a lot, and I apologize.
He sounds like a stud.
He does sound like a stud, and I'm excited to have him as a Philly. I agree with Ryan, though. It's not going to be 2021, definitely not 2021, definitely not 2022. 2023 is probably where we're looking at him. I said it again. We're going to go – I think we should just move on to division by division. And since we're talking about Phillies, we may as well start with the NL East.
Yeah, so I got the Braves at the top of the division. I got them winning 97 games. And the only notes that I really have for this team are, depending on how long Mike Soroka's out, he's coming off that nasty heel injury at the end of last year, is going to be – that determines whether they win 100 games or not. I have them just shy. I think Soroka misses all of April and a little bit of May in his recovery, but he's going to be a top of the rotation guy for a very long time. Great fastball, nasty changeup. And they added a lot of great bench players in the offseason. They added Jake Lamb, a left-handed bat, Jason Kipnis, who's no longer a starter, but he's had some good seasons up there in Cleveland, and they already have Johan Camargo. So their bench is deep. I like their pitching staff. I like their bullpen. Max Fried did a fantastic job last year. And once they get Soroka back, this team will take off. I have them winning this division by 10 games easy.
Tim?
I agree with Ryan with that, the Braves, but I don't have them at 97 wins. I have them a little bit lower. I count in the injuries, but we don't know what injury is going to happen when the season begins. So I really can't say nothing else about that. Bill?
How many wins did you have them with?
I have them at 89 and 73.
Wow, I totally disagree with you there. 89 wins, I don't believe is going to be enough to be first in the NL East this year. Now, I do have the Braves, and I want everybody to know Ryan and I agree on a lot of things, but this is the only record we do agree on through our predictions. I also have the Braves at 97 wins. Look, the team has Ronald Acuna Jr., Freddie Freeman still playing at an extremely high level. Ozzie Albies is probably one of the best second basemen in baseball. They're going to be good. End of story. They're going to be good. And it's not going to be close between them and the Nationals. It's not going to be close between them and the Phillies, and the Mets and Marlins are at the bottom of my division here on this. To round out the top 3 teams. So like I said, I've got the Braves, Nationals, Phillies. I got the Nationals winning 90 games. I also have them at my number 2 wild card in the NL, and the Phillies winning 88 games. Like I said, just not enough to get them in the playoffs this year.
I'm on the fence here. I have the Nationals and the Phillies as 2 and 3 as well, but I have them both winning 86 games. It's tough for me. This is a coin flip because we don't know what we're getting from Max Scherzer, who's getting a little older, and even in a shortened season, was struggling with those nagging injuries that tend to hit pitchers, throughout the year. They make 10 to 12 starts. They can't really get any flow going. Granted, they still have Strasburg, who has reinvented himself. He's not the same guy that came out of SDSU with the #1 overall pick in 2009. He's not throwing the 99, 100 miles an hour. He's more reinvented down into the low 90s, but he's got that great changeup. He still has a good curveball. They added Josh Bell into the middle of their lineup up in Washington, and that is huge. That guy hits bombs. But they have questions at third base. How's Carter Kieboom going to produce there? He's a natural shortstop. He can't play there because Trey Turner's there. Opposite with the Phillies, kind of. The bullpen's going to drive the Phillies. They had a terrible bullpen last year, as we talked about last week. Nola and Wheeler are still a top 5 1-2 punch, in my opinion. And center field, whoever starts there, it's looking like Odubel Herrera. If they produce, I think the Phillies can get into a wild card position if that rotation and bullpen even pan out half as good as they did last year.
Yeah, I agree with what Ryan said about the National, the Philly being my 2-3-2. I have them both at 87 and 75.
Okay.
I think the Philly signed JT with a big deal with Didi. They make big impacts on the field, but like Ryan said. And the Nationals, like Ryan said about the Max Scherzer, you don't know what you're going to have. He's getting old. So.
And to touch on the Mets a little bit, I know that they just traded for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. I do not have them in a playoff position because they're already suffering from pitching injuries, which has nagged this team in the past. Thor's not going to be back until June. Carlos Carrasco's missed time in spring training with injuries already. So they're just naturally plagued by injury. Jacob deGrom, I mean, he's still the best pitcher probably in all of baseball, but they can't seem to stay healthy. And until I see them stay healthy, I'm going to bank on them being hurt.
NL Central, we're going to move into them. So we're going to do a rotation here. You guys are going to figure it out pretty quick. NL East, NL Central, NL West, AL East, AL Central, AL West. So moving to the NL Central, I got the St. Louis Cardinals as a 92-win team, 92 and 70. They get Arenado from the Rockies. We discussed this last week. They robbed the Rockies of Nolan Arenado. They have Paul DeJong playing second base. Paul Goldschmidt still on the roster. Tommy Edman. They're pitching. They have an ace in Flaherty, but behind him it's much weaker. So I don't think they get to the 95 win mark, but I think they win the division with 92 wins. I got the Brewers following them at 85 wins, and then the Reds at 81. The reason I got the Brewers at 85 wins is because, and I kind of touched on this the other night, they got Brandon Woodruff and Corbin Burns as their 1-2 rotation starters in their rotation this year. And a lot of people say that, they've been overproducing, but they've done it for 3 years in a row. At some point, you got to stop saying they're overproducing and saying that's what they are. So again, they win 85 games, but they just missed the playoffs.
I agree with you in the order. I don't agree with the record. I think the Cardinals' lack of rotation keeps them just short of 90 wins. I've got them at 89 and 73. Jack Flaherty's a stud, top 5 pitcher in all of baseball. That guy's going to be a beast for years, a Harvard Westlake product. Him, Max Fried, Lucas Giolito all come from that school. That they have, Arenado, who's going to protect Goldschmidt. Now that lineup should rake 1 through 9. They've got some great bats, and they're all protecting each other. But like I said, that rotation outside of Flaherty, if Michaelis comes back and pitches well, that's a boost to this team. But he's got some injuries that he's dealing with right now, and after that, it's a question mark. I'd love to see Matt Liberatore up there, but I don't think he's going to be ready this year. He's probably a next year thing, and they have some youth. Dylan Carlson, number 13 prospect in baseball, is projected to be starting outfielder this year, so we'll see how he does.
I agree with the record, but I had Brewers taking the division. So like Billy said, with the 2 starting pitchers for the Brewers, they've been coming at you for 3 years now, haven't changed. I just think that they have a strong outfield with Christian Yelich leading it, and I think he's going to make a big comeback this year. He had an all season in 2020, but now he healed up. He came coming back from an injury. So it's time for him to turn up again.
Yeah, I agree. He started out really bad last year. It was he was 1 for his first 25 or something like that. He was terrible to start, and being such a short season that had such an effect on the rest of his year. But yeah, I can agree with that. Yelich will be back. He'll be fine.
Anything else
Moving
to
on.
add to this division here, fellas?
No. Let's move
All
on
right.
to the NL West, where I think this is where things between the three of us get a little interesting because we definitely don't have the same winner at the top of the division. Bill, why don't you start?
So I've got the Los Angeles Dodgers taking the top seed in the NL West and in the NL in general. I've got them with 102 wins and 60 losses. The team is still great. Clayton Kershaw. I want to talk about Clayton Kershaw real quick. So the man has been in the league for 13 years. When he came up, he was a hard thrower. He had to reinvent himself, much like Steven Strasburg did. He learned to be more of a Mike Maddox type pitcher, paint the corners, use his off-speed stuff a lot better. So again, a 13-year career. He's been to the postseason 10 times, and this is the first time he won a World Series last year. During last year's postseason, he was lights out. He went 30. He pitched 30 innings. He only gave up 23 hits, only 10 earned runs. He only walked 5 guys the entire postseason, and he posted up a 2.93 ERA. I know he's not the only person on the team, but they've still got Buehler on the roster. They added Trevor Bauer in the offseason. You still got Bellinger and Turner in the lineup. Hands down, they're my lead for the NL, and I think they win the World Series again, back-to-back.
I don't know about back-to-back World Series. That's really hard to do, but they could do it. They have the talent. My only 2 question marks about them. One, I think they have the best trio of starting pitchers in baseball. Like you said, Kershaw, Buehler, and Bauer. They're going to be good. There's no way that they're not. They have 0 holes in this lineup, especially if Gavin Lux comes out and he hits really, really well. My only concern with this team is that they might need a 4th outfielder. AJ Pollock slotted to start, and he has a bit of an injury history behind him, but Chris Taylor can slide in and play left field at any time. I agree, Bill. I got these guys winning over 100 games as well, 101 and 61. Tim, why don't you tell us who you have winning the NL West?
I might be lowballing them, but I have the Padres over the Dodgers winning that NL West. I
No
just
way.
think
How many wins?
How
many wins?
95 and 67.
Ooh, no.
I said I might be lowballing, man. I said it. But they signed a couple good deals like over the offseason, like Fernando Tatis Jr., 14 years, $330 million.
Huge.
They're probably one of the biggest deals in MLB right now.
So here's the thing. I'm not down on the Padres. They are my wild card 1 team in the NL. They win 97 on my board, which means I have them at 97 wins and a wild card, and you have them at 95 and winning the division. Throwing it out there. 1, 2. I want to point out that my World Series repeat is my way too early prediction, and I think we're going to try and do one of these every now and then. Moving past that again. But look, they just added Blake Snell in the offseason. They added Yu Darvish in the offseason. The team is also going to be good. This is the top 2 teams in this division are going to be battling it out all year long, and I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely.
I agree. I have them as my wild card 1, but I have them winning 94 games. I'm a little bit lower than you guys. This team could have the best infield in baseball if Jake Cronenworth is legit. He finished 3rd in the NL Rookie of the Year voting last year. This guy rakes and he plays good defense. They made huge upgrades in the rotation, like you touched on. Snell, Darvish, they acquired Joe Musgrove. So they have 5 really good starting pitchers. Lamet is out for a little bit, so his timetable is a little questionable. He might come back in the beginning of May. If he comes back early and this team gets rolling, they could win 100 games. They could challenge the Dodgers a little more. I just don't like the fact that even Fernando Tatis Jr. hasn't played a full 162 game season yet. There's a lot of youth in this lineup. So we'll have to me, it's more of like a prove it to me type of deal where I need to see it over the length of a full season before I go ahead and say, yeah, the Padres are legit. I could be lowballing them a little bit too, like Timmy said, but I don't think that they take this division from the Dodgers. I think that the experience wins ball games. So
before we move on to the next division and conference, I just need to let everybody hear my notes on the Colorado Rockies, who are at the bottom of the NL West. I have this whole document thing typed out, and for the Rockies, I have them at 60 and 102. And what my notes say is, "Whew, Trevor Story." End of statement.
They got Charlie Blackmon too, but I agree. I think Story and Blackmon get shipped out by the deadline. Story's on a contract here. I can't see him re-signing in Colorado unless he just wants to inflate his numbers for the rest of his career. But they're not going to win anything anytime soon, especially not in that division. I got them finishing last as well. right behind the Diamondbacks. I got the Rockies finishing with 6 to 7 wins. I think their rotation's good enough to avoid a 100-loss season, but outside that they just don't have the bats to compete.
I agree with you guys on that, with the Diamondback being last in the division.
Rockies last, Diamondbacks ahead
Yeah,
of them.
Rockies last. I got the
Yes.
Diamondbacks right in front.
I'm sorry, yes, Rockies.
Sorry.
AL East, moving on, top of the division. This is easy for me. I think this is the widest gap that I have in any division, is the Yankees winning 101 games. The 0 holes in the lineup, especially if Gleyber Torres fits right in at shortstop and gets, out of his own head. And then Corey Kluber and Jameson Taiyan were 2 very low risk, high reward acquisitions in the offseason. Kluber's a former 2-time Cy Young Award winner, and they got him on a pretty cheap deal. I think 1 year around $10 million with some incentives. Jameson Taiyan's still under 30, one of the top prospects in baseball in the Pirates organization for a very long time. So I think the Yankees go ahead and take this division pretty easy, and I think they contend for a World Series title.
I agree with Ryan. I don't have them over 100 wins. I have them at 96 and 66. But they have a really strong outfield with Carlos Stanton and Aaron Judge. And if they're playing in hitters ball fields, they're going to hit a lot of home runs this year.
So I have them winning the division. It's not as wide of a gap as you guys have it. And I don't even have them winning 95 games. I've got them at 93 and 67. I have a reason for it. Look, the reality is Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gary Sanchez, these guys, DJ LeMahieu, these guys in the lineup are ridiculously good. As Ryan pointed out, the lineup is going to do great. They're going to rake. Timmy pointed out they're going to hit tons of home runs. That's all fine and dandy. But they have other teams in this division that are still good. The Blue Jays are my number 2 and my wild card number 2 in the AL, and I've got them at 89 and 73. Look, they got a lot of young talent. They need to prove it, much like Ryan said about the Padres. It's a show me what you got scenario, and that's how I feel about the Blue Jays. They got Gavin Biggio, just so you guys know the last name, in case you're not familiar with, Craig Biggio. We'll get through it.
He's only a Hall of Famer. He's okay.
Yeah, only one of them. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, they added from the Houston Astros, and they have Nate Pearson. And this is one of my other early predictions. Nate Pearson will be in the Cy Young talk this year. So I think the Blue Jays actually put up a good fight against the Yankees. In the end, they lose. They get 2 spot. They're 89 wins. Puts them in that spot for me.
Yeah, so I don't even have the Blue Jays finishing top 3 in this division. I got them at 81 and 81. Second place for me is still the Rays. They have some rotation questions, but they always have rotation questions, and somehow they get these guys to pitch really well. Mike Walker's a former really good pitcher. Rich Hill's a little old, but he's still effective. And Chris Archer, a one-time Ray, is now back there, and he pitched very effectively when he was at Tropicana. I also have the Wander watch on. I know that they have a great shortstop there. However, Wander Franco's been the top prospect in baseball for a couple of years now, and he was just hitting bombs over scoreboards, and I think he batted over 360 in the spring training. So, and they're returning a lot from the championship squad outside of Charlie Morton. You got Tyler Glass now. He's going to lead the rotation finally. He's got electric stuff. I think I don't think they're as good as they were last year, losing Morton and Snell, but I think they'll be just fine this year. I think they win 87 games and take second in this division.
I agree with Bill. I had the Blue Jays winning second in the division at 90 and 72.
How many wins you got the Yankees taking?
96 and 66.
Say that. I apologize. One other thing I want to touch on in this division, and because it's a feel-good story, the Baltimore Orioles that are going to be absolutely terrible this year, 57 and 105 is what I've got them at. While they do have the number 2 overall prospect in baseball in Adley Rutschman, he's likely to come up this year. The feel-good story here is Trey Mancini is returning from colon cancer last year. He didn't play. It's great. It's great to have those feel-good stories anywhere, and Baltimore does have one in Trey Mancini. I think he probably wins the Comeback Player of the Year award simply on like just the fact that he's coming back.
Yeah, I agree with that. However, I do think the Orioles will be competitive for the first pick in the draft. They're definitely not going to compete for a division title, but well, I got them at 55 and 107. Matt Harvey's third in their rotation. That should tell you all you need to know about their, what the state of that team is. Matt Harvey was a dynamite early on in his career in New York, and then this dude just fell off a cliff and never recovered. I don't know what happened to this guy. Speaking of mysteries in baseball, Matt Harvey's definitely one of them. Maybe he rejuvenates his career. Who knows? Moving on to the AL Central, this is definitely where things are going to get a little dicey. I do not have the White Sox winning this division like my two counterparts do, I believe. I have the Twins winning this division on day 162 of this season. I believe that they finally take it out. 88 and 74. I don't have them with as many wins as they've had in the past. They lost Edwin Rosario, and Berrios could, use some. Jose Berrios is still very young. He could bounce back, but I have them winning 88 games, going 88-74, taking this division.
Tim?
I have them at winning the division too, the Twins, at 87-75. Josh Donaldson coming back from a big injury. So he's going to be a third baseman once again, and to be big in the lineup at a bat.
Yeah, and he's big in the field too. He's got a good glove.
Absolutely.
Bill?
I have the White Sox winning this division, and I have them winning it hands down. 97-65 over the Twins, 92-70. Now I do have the Twins as my wild card one in the AL, but the White Sox, it's another team that you look at and you're like, man, how did they put all this talent together? They've just been doing it for years at this point. You obviously have the reigning MVP in Luis Robert. You got Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, and Carlos Rodon as their starting rotation. They added Liam Hendricks in the closer role, which is huge. And not to mention they have, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Abreu is the reigning MVP. They also have Luis Robert. I just think the Twins are going to be good. They're going to hit home runs. In 2019, they led the entire league in home runs. Not just the league. They have the most home runs in MLB history. So the Twins are going to be good, but I just think the White Sox are better here.
I disagree for now. Again, with the White Sox, just like we talked about before, they're very, very, very young. They have a very good rotation head. Lucas Giolito had a great season last year, looking to build off of that. However, with Nick Madrigal, Luis Robert, Michael Kopech, Garrett Crochet, who I want to talk about a little bit, and Andrew Vaughn, those are five guys that, last year they were in the 100 top prospects in the MLB. 4 out of the 5 of them are still there. Garrett Crochet, I wanted the Phillies to draft this guy so bad, but he didn't fall to number 14. This guy's got electric stuff, left-hander from Tennessee, 21 years old, touching 101 miles an hour out of the bullpen, nasty slider, and he hides the ball really well. His deception is unbelievable. This guy's going to be a stud. I don't see him in the rotation this year, but I think the White Sox would be a fool not to include him in the rotation in 2022. I got them winning 87 games. They picked up a good manager, a guy who's won World Series before, Antonio La Russa. So I may be lowballing this team. I'll admit that right now before the season starts. I may be lowballing them. This is another example of I need to see the youth through 162 games before I go ahead and sell out on them.
Tim?
I agree. I had the White Sox second in the division at 85-77. Like Vine said, they're a young team. I need them to prove it to me. That's basically it.
Okay. For those of you wondering why maybe we haven't added the Indians to our list here, the loss of Francisco Lindor, in my opinion, is what bombs this team this year. I don't think I have to say anything else.
If they're out of contention by the trade deadline, they'll probably deal Jose Ramirez too. They got the 36th ranked prospect in the MLB and Nolan Jones waiting behind him. It wouldn't surprise me. I think they hold on to Shane Bieber. I'm pretty sure he's still got a couple of, arbitration years left. So I don't think they're ready to move on from him. He's still really young and one of the best top 5 pitchers in baseball, in my opinion. He had a great year last year in a shortened season, but him and Tristan McKenzie will keep them competitive. I do not think that they have the lineup to even compete for a wild card spot, let alone win this division.
Okay. We're going to move on to the AL West. I'm going to start with the Rangers. And here's why I'm going to start with the Rangers. Okay. They're going to be bad. They will lose 100 games exactly, 62 and 100. The new stadium is good to go, which is wonderful for the Texas Rangers. They have Joey Gallo, which is, a huge bright spot. Stadium's good to go. The team isn't. Joey Gallo is their only bright spot. They have a lot of prospects that could possibly make an appearance this season. Josh Jung's a third baseman. Sam Huff's catcher. Dalton Dunning is a pitcher. They have an opportunity and probably should make an appearance this year. But the Rangers are just there's nothing exciting about the Rangers right now. Moving up to who I have winning the division is I have the Angels at 88 and 74. They need some pitching help. Hands down, the offense is good, though. Trout, Rendon, Ohtani, Fowler, Upton. They're going to score runs. They have Dylan Bundy. Could use some consistently good starters. I just don't think there's anybody else in the division, aside from the A's, that are going to be able to compete with them for 162 games.
I disagree with the division winner there. I got the A's. The A's I kind of look at like the Rays, where they just win ball games, and nobody really knows how because nobody knows anybody on their roster. They did fill their void at shortstop and DH when Marcus Semien and Chris Davis were shipped out in the offseason or left. Elvis Andrews should have a bounce back year. He's played in AL West his whole career, so it's not unfamiliar to him. And Mitch Moreland's been solid throughout his career. He's not been great, but he's done what he needed to do, especially in a lineup that can protect him. And Matt Chapman should have a bounce back year at the plate. I believe he'll hit just fine. And the rotation's young. Jesus Luzardo is going to be a beast in the MLB one day, but give them some time. I think they still have the best rotation and bullpen in this division, so I got them winning 89 games at the top.
I agree with Ryan with the Athletics being #1 in the division. He took what I was going to put down for Matt Chapman. He's going to be back this year. No doubt about it. I have him at 86 and 76, and I got the Angels right behind him at 85 and 77.
I got the Angels at 84 wins. Again, prove it to me. Ohtani hasn't been healthy on the bump since he came here. I like his bat, but these health issues are a concern. And if he stays healthy, they probably will win this division. Let me put that out there. And Trout's going to trout. Trout hasn't stopped trouting since he came into the league. And that's going to all he's doing is building on a Hall of Fame resume at this point. I mean, if he ended his career today, people would probably vote him into the Hall of Fame. He's the best position player in baseball, best all-around athlete in baseball, in my opinion. This dude, he's a stud, and he'll carry this team as far as they're willing to go, but he needs some help. And if Ohtani can stay healthy, he'll get it. Anthony Rendon will need to hit a little bit better too, in my opinion.
I'd like to point out one of my notes I have for the Angels. Mike Trout equal to beast.
Yeah, Trout gonna trout. I want to talk about the Astros real quick. I have them at 81 and 81, taking third. Losing George Springer at the top of the lineup was huge. However, they were the worst road team in baseball last year. They didn't even win 10 games on the road, and that was with empty stadiums. Fans are chomping at the bit to let these guys hear it. So I think they also do equally as pathetic on the road this year. I think they have enough talent on the team to maybe win some games, but they're definitely not going to compete in this division. And fans are waiting for these guys to come back. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed our predictions this week. If you could, as always, please go to our Facebook page, like us, follow us. When you're watching our video on YouTube, please subscribe to us. Everything helps. Tell your friends, tell your family. We're super happy to be doing this. Tim, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's great to have you.
Absolutely great to have you. Any closing notes, Ryan? We got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, baseball is unpredictable. We sit here and make all these predictions, and then the whole Dodgers rotation gets COVID. They're out for 2 weeks and they lose 14 games. And the Phillies acquire Joey Gallo at the deadline or something, and we go on to win 100 games in the World Series. That's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. That's me being a fan. But baseball is going to be exciting this year. We'll talk about it throughout the season. We'll touch on it. We'll have different guests from different fan bases coming on and talking about their teams and what they feel about the MLB. So just sit back and relax, guys, and enjoy. I hope you guys enjoy the season because I'm ready to go watch some baseball games.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening to BSing Sports.
Have a good night.